We're going to call the September 17th meeting to order. If you're able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silent prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll remain standing for a moment of silence. The first item on the agenda is a budget review by Giovanna, our accounting director. Neil, sorry.
Hi, Giovanna Neal, accounting director. I'd like to go over a brief overview of our 25 budget draft that we have put in the packet for you. It is also online. I do want to say that our residents or anyone can get a copy of this. But the overview we're going to go over, let's see if we can get to, oh, that's all right. Okay, right there is good. All right, so what I'm going to go over tonight is going to be the millage rates, the tax revenue. Those are our biggest revenues that we have. We also have the state shared revenue. So those are our big revenues that we have coming into the township. We're going to go over basic expenditure assumptions. So these are assumptions that are made basically for the wages, fringe benefits, all through all the funds that we do have. And then we're going to go over a pension and OPEB review. Okay, the next page we have is the L4029, which the board did approve at the August 28th special meeting. So the rates are on there. And this is not a signed copy, but we do have Supervisor Stumbo and Clerk Gerald Rowe actually signed those, and those are in my file now, but I don't have it for this one. The next page is the historical and the new millage rates. All right. So what I did was I put on there so you could kind of see what we've been charging not charging the resident, what we've been collecting from residents for these millages for our special operations and for our general fund. So if you look at the top line, that's the budget year. The tax roll is the next line down, and it's always 1 year lower than the actual budget year. We do have a Headley rollback line. I'll explain that briefly. That is when the rates of the homes exceed the inflation rate, then we have what's called a Headley rollback, and we take some off to help the residents outweigh that inflation. All right, but if you look at the last column, that's our 25 budget. Our tax roll is 24. You can see the rates. We had a Headley rollback of 0.9928. You can see how the rates go down. And you can see the subtotals. So we are a little bit less than what we were last year. The biggest reduction that we had for the millage is the fire pension. The annual required contributions went down, so we only had to collect 0.732 from the residents for that, which makes the total for the year levied for the township the 13.6271. So just thought you'd like to see that. Okay, and as I said, the fire pension did go down, the fire pension and the OPEB, the healthcare millages, required determined contribution went down from 0.8800 to 0.7320. We did have the Headley rollback. I explained that already. And the other thing that I did want to explain on the millage was that the board last year approved a decrease in the police millage by 0.07 because we had to increase the fire pension by that amount. So we increased the fire pension last year, and we reduced the millage that we needed for the police services. We continued that reduction of the .07 into this year, this tax year. So the millage decreased total by .2418. The taxable value on the L4029, which is what you approved for the millages, the taxable value was $1,829,176,576. It was an increase of 7.1% over 23's taxable value. We do have the Renaissance Zone. That is the American Center for Mobility. Thank you very much, Madam Supervisor. We do have that, we do have to take that off, so that amount brought that taxable value to the $1.8 billion. And at any time, if you have any questions, you want me to stop if I'm going too quickly, please just shout out. I was trying to go over them pretty quickly for you. Yes. Please use a microphone.
So I know that we've been fortunate enough to fully staff the fire department now. Does that change at all because we're fully staffed, or we always budget to be fully staffed and then we're fine?
We always budget to be fully staffed. We did last year, we did
all
this year.
that taken care of, and then, so the pension, that is always fully staffed. So when you say you're making changes, that comes from someone else telling us what we have to?
On the pensions?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the actuarial's job. We have to have an annual actuarial report for pension. Our OPEB, which is the healthcare, can be done every 2 years. And so when they do these reports, it's a look back. So 23's report that we just received this summer, they have the, pardon me, the annual determined contribution rate for 26 in that one. Oh, 25, I'm sorry, because it's 2 years up. It's like a look back.
So is the pension planned on who's already in existence and employed, or does that also count
At a
when
time,
we are now?
at that time, on December 31st of 23, that's the snapshot that they take. However, they do know how many people that we're supposed to have. So I think they do take that into consideration when they're doing those. Matrices that they have for, yeah, they've got big matrices for those. All right, and when I do the budget, I don't take the full taxable value because there's going to be some exceptions. The exceptions are down in the purple area. So what it does have is it has the full amount of the taxable value and 50% of the industrial zone. What I have to take off of that is the Renaissance zone because we don't collect on that. We have 2 pilots. We have veterans exemptions. There's some delinquent personal property taxes that we may not receive, and then the board foreclosures. Those are things that we don't know for sure. Those are just estimates. And then we have property or poverty exemptions. So when I do my budget, I'm going to be doing my budget on the $1,785,953,546 is what I do the budget on. So those are the numbers that you'll see in the next page. And what I wanted on this spreadsheet, I'm showing you what we did for 23's tax roll, which is 24, the year that we're in right now. You can see that I have the budgeted is the first column. That's what I budgeted last year. What we actually received is in the second column. So it's not quite 50,000, or it might be just a little bit over 50,000 of a difference. So it's very close to what we actually did receive, the budget. And that was a very conservative based on those subtractions that I make out of the taxable value. So in this year for 25, you can see when I did the 1.7 billion, was what the numbers are going to be. And those are what's budgeted throughout the funds. And this is just how we do our calculation, how we end up with the total of the 24,337,368. We do collect an administrative tax fee, and we have to make sure that we don't collect any more than what the assessment department and the treasury department, their expenditures are. So I put their expenditures up for you. It's at 1.1 million, and what I have budgeted for the collection for 25 is 930,000. State shared revenue. This is a little bit difficult to explain because we're on the state, their fiscal year is from October 1st through September 30th. So it's a little hard to budget for the last quarter that we have that they don't have. But, excuse me, it does come in pretty close. And you do get this information right from the Michigan website. You can just go on there for the revenue, and it shows you what they have listed as what they are going to give us for their 25. It is a little bit of a decrease. It's not very much. I think it was only a 1.5% decrease for the year for 25. And I broke it down of what the amounts of that. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
John, will you?
Could you bring me that water? Thanks. I should have brought it down with me. So the state projected amount for the constitutional is thank you very much, the 5,946,258, and then for the cities, villages, township revenue sharing, that's what those acronym is, it's at 645,699. That makes up the amount. And how the state does the constitutional payment is they take the population at their snapshot and they multiply it. They have a multiplier that 106.81. Just wanted to let you know that's how they do their calculations. And those were as of May, I think it's May 17th of 24. Those could change. So these are just estimates from the state. They could change. And so I do go in and try to look at them periodically to make sure that we have the most up-to-date numbers before we finalize our budget. Okay, the next is the expenditure assumptions. And this covers through all the funds. You know, our biggest expenditures are personnel and our fringe benefits, with the exception of, you know, our sheriff's department, fire department. Of course, they're made up of all of our employees. So the first one is all of the union contracts except for the fire department. Those are still they're starting negotiations on those. But we did budget a 3% increase. That could change up or down. Still is negotiations, so we are not sure. We also did a 3% increase for any non-union and management positions. The fire union, the assumption on that is 3.5. That is actually an actual number. Their contract will expire now in December of 27. And the elected official salary will be set by the board every year, so we don't put in an increase on that. We bring that back to the board for you to take a look at.
We did budget for 3% increases
For
employees and elected. And
the elected,
non-union. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's in the preliminary budget.
Okay, sorry. So we do have a 3% increase on those. The personnel, the fringes. So we don't have our actual rates yet. We have two. But what we do is we just do an assumption or an estimate, what we think that It's pretty close. For our healthcare, we've budgeted an increase of 15%, vision 2%, dental 5%, and we do have the actual numbers for the disability and life because they were on a July 1st through June 30th contract. So we did have those numbers for you. Any questions on the expenditures? Because those are all through the funds.
I wondered about the fringes, because we've been so fortunate to have costs come in lower than expected. We've been really fortunate. Is there any indication about what it's?
I think we're going to have a high one.
Okay.
I think we'll have a high one this year.
15, and I heard 15%.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I would be a little upset if it's over the 15, but I think we're going to come in because we haven't had an increase in a couple years.
Yeah.
Not a significant one anyway.
Very fortunate.
We're very fortunate. You're right.
Okay.
So. Right. So the next page is our general employee MERS pension. I did budget for a flat rate of employees that were hired before 2014. We're on the a different type of pension. So we have the two separate pensions with MERS. And, excuse me, so in '24, I budgeted for 22 people. So we had 22 active people, and I did $35,313. We had to increase that for '24 because we went down to 20 active people. We had some retirees. So we had to budget $43,154 for each one of the employees that were hired before 2014. The employees that were hired after that, those increased from 5.9% to 6.14% of wages. So there's just kind of a different, a flat amount for the closed and then a percentage for the active people after that. The annual determined contribution increased from the $978,456 to $1,092,408. And down at the bottom is just a nice chart. It just kind of tells you exactly what we have within the plan. We're at 72% funded. It did go down just a little bit. Does anyone have any questions on that table? Okay.
And this was as of 12/31/23.
That is correct. The actuarial report was that date.
And the auditor said that because of the investments, this number, as far as fully funded, it would be closer than the 72% at the end of this year.
At the end of this year. Because our interest, we've had very good interest this year. The year that it went down, we lost almost $2 million in interest. So it doesn't help when that happens, but they have a smoothing calculation that they do. There's a lot of calculations that go into these actuarial reports. There's a lot of smoothing and major, but anyway, we are back on the rise there. The general employee OPEB account, our fund that we have, is closed to anyone hired after 2014. So the people that are in there, we're only have to budget for
$119.
I'm sorry, yep. That's, yes, so $119,250 is our annual determined contribution. I'm asking for more than that, though. I would ask for, in the budget, $6,572 for 21 active employees, which brings that total to $138,012. So the sooner we pay those off, the more we'll have it funded at 100%. And as you can see, it's at 95 right now. So I'm asking, to budget just a little bit more than what the annual determined contribution is. What's nice about this one is you can see our unfunded liability is only at $500 $110,000. So that's not very much. This should be funded very soon, at 100%.
Whereas the pension is 8.7 million, almost 8.8 million unfunded.
Correct.
So it gives you an idea.
All right. For the employees hired after 2014, the township does have a healthcare savings plan provided for them. They put in a certain amount, a percentage from their wages, and then we match that, not match it, we give them $1,300 a year for that. And what they can do is they can use that for any of the healthcare stuff that they would have when they retire or leave. And the budgeted amount, I have 66 active employees for that, and we budgeted for $85,800. Fire pension, again, I'm just going to go to the chart because the chart just has all the stuff that you need in the chart. It's just easier to go over. You have your accrued liabilities, your assets, what the unfunded amount is at $7.9 million, roughly there. And it is funded at 80%. In 2025, the annual determined contribution that we need to deposit is $1,176,795. You can see in 24, on bond 24, we actually gave more because we earned a lot of interest. We earned $72,000 in interest in that account, $72,000, and you guys approved me to go ahead and send that in to them. So I did send them a little bit more that year. And you can see the year before that, we did not. So one year we did. Any questions on that? That's looking pretty healthy right now. Then we go into the firefighters OPEB account. That one is funded at 85% now. The annual determined contribution would be $129,511. So you can see how that has gone down as well, because that is also a closed account. The new firefighters hired after 2014, they do have a healthcare savings plan that the township provides for them. The township contributes $5,330 for each of the firefighters. We have 19, and the total budgeted for that is $101,270. Questions? The next page is just showing how we came up with the budget for the capital for 25. We had a lot of projects in 24. I don't know where they're going to be right now. We still have to look and monitor them toward the end until we finalize our budget. But if you look at, let's see, the second column. So the third column, which says 24, the encumbered and the unencumbered. That's what the project still has, that amount that we need to spend. There's some encumbered monies. That means that we've had contracts on them or whatever position. We have purchase orders on those, so those are held. But you need those amounts. Then the next column is what's for 2025 carry forward. These are the ones that are not going to be, we feel they're not going to be completed in 24. So we have to budget for them in 25. And this is where we're going to have to monitor those. And then you can see in the last column are new projects that we'll need to budget for. So I know there's a lot there. We have a lot of projects and a lot of balls in the air with those, but we will be monitoring those and we'll bring those back for a final for you on those. Does anyone have any questions on kind of what we're looking at there? It's a lot.
The majority of them are the ARPA projects.
That is correct.
And the grants for 14B District Board is
Yes.
also in this.
Yes, and all of those, if all the grants that you see the expenditures on, the revenue will match that for the grants, and going into 25, we'll have the revenue and the grants expenditures matching. So those will net to zero as far as not using any of the township funds, but they're in the grants.
There's just one IT is budgeted, the IT room, because it was bid out with 14B Court. And so we did put it in the budget, but it might actually be started this year.
Yeah.
So we-
If we do approve that, so there was, in the bid packet, there was an addendum number 4, that when the construction people all came through to do their bids, they were asked to do this addendum number 4 for the IT room, which is in very bad shape, so it does need something. And that's not part of the grant, the $5 million grant we got for the safety over at the court. So it's separate, so we wanted to bring that back separate. However, the construction company knows about it, they put a bid on it, so we could kind of all get them there at one time and not have to have them come back out again to do that. And we'll bring that forward whenever we get the contracts in a good position for that. And I think there was a couple of changes that had to be made, so we'll bring that back to the board. And then if we do go ahead and approve that in '24, I'll have to do a budget amendment. You have to budget for it in the year that you sign the contract.
So these capital projects outside of ARPA and grant are taken care of in like that same year as opposed to a 5-year payment?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah, we paid.
Yeah, it's,
yep, okay,
yep.
all right.
So the majority of them are the ARPA stuff, and we do, the ones that you see here that still have the encumbered and the encumbered amount, there's several of them that, you know, I was talking with John Hines, our municipal service director, that they'll be completed by the end of '24. So you don't see those rolling forward on the carry forward. Okay. All right, and then budget amendments that we've done, and these are all general fund. So this is not anything in any other funds. This is just general funds that I'm talking about now. These are the budget amendments for the general fund. You can see we did a total of $147,989. Not very many for a year. That we've kept that down to the minimum. So just kind of wanted to show you what those were. And the last page that I have is where our fund balance or projected fund balances are going to be. I have to do them by budget-wise. If you can see, we ended '23 with a fund balance of $6,326,261. In our original '24 budget, I did not put the revenue for the ARPA funds in the revenue line. I put them in the appropriated prior year funds, so that was an error on my part. So you'll see down below where I had this deferred $8,795,000. I'm adding that back in because that should have been in a revenue and not coming out of our prior year fund balance. So all the stuff in the brown stuff there is what I said that we budgeted for the 10 million, but I really needed to put the 8 million back into a revenue so I could pull that out. And then I have the $147,989, which is what we just did, budget amendments for '24. Then we have our budget net, if we were doing our budget net for '24 budget. And then our projected amount of fund balance for '24, that's the budgeted amount. A lot of times we don't spend all that, so that'll adjust. But for budget-wise, you take the 6 million, you take off the 2,195,492, and our projected ending fund balance is going to be 4,130,769, which is 15.3%. The auditor likes us to keep it from anywhere from 15 to 20, so we're still in that range. And another thing too is that you kind of base it on the revenue, and the revenue has the grant stuff in there too. So I think we're in better shape even than the 15%. So.
I hope so.
And then our recommended for the 25, we just need to use the 221,122, and that's the IT room. And the projected fund balance will be the $3,909,647. And that puts us at 17.7% funded because it's based on the revenue. So that just it kind of adjusts on that. Any questions?
Are there any questions? This, yeah.
We'll be bringing back the individual funds in a group, so if you have any questions that you would like addressed on any specific thing, please email me, and I'll go over those specifically. Otherwise, we'll just be going through them really quickly, because they do have, each one of the lines has a narrative on what that fund is to be used for. So if you have any questions or that you would like me to address, please, let me know what those are ahead of time, and we can hit those, and then otherwise, we're just going to go through really quick.
And all capital projects are going to come back to the board because there's a lot of asset management requests for capital improvement. But if we would have budgeted for all of it, it would have been a large amount of money coming out of fund balance. And we like our revenue and our expenditures for operations to match. So the only one we did budget for is the one that should probably start this year.
That is correct.
But we had to, because we authorized it to go out and to bid, even though we had like 6% growth, or was it 7.1, you said, in revenue, 5% of that was because assessed values were so high. And that's due to the state law. It's not anything our assessing department did. It's 5%, the rate of inflation, whichever is less. Well, inflation was 8%. So it's a 5% actual increase on everyone's tax value, which means they pay more taxes. And then, of course, we had ATA, which I know was discussed a lot when people were paying their taxes as well. So, but Ypsilanti Township has managed to levy less every year and shift and do whatever we can to help with affordability of homes. About 14% of your bill is a township. The rest are the other taxing agencies. But if everyone did just a little in the county and the schools, if they could, if everyone could just do a little bit less, it would add up. And this is the tightest budget I've done in a long time, because the expenditures and the revenue are meeting.
So I just want to say thank you, Giovanna, and I want to say thank you to everybody else who worked on the budget. I know in my 4 years working as a trustee, one of the things that I really appreciate is how well managed the township funds are, and that when employees bring things to us, the budgeting is always discussed and brought forward. So when communities don't have budgeting practices like that, you can get into trouble that causes problems just all the way down the road. So I cannot say enough how much I've appreciated in my 4 years seeing, first of all, your budget planning with the supervisor's office and everybody else who's involved. But every employee always comes and says, right up from the get-go, this is under budget, or this is over budget, and this is how we plan to take care of it. And when you manage money, the people's money that way, there's a better outcome. So I appreciate everyone, and it does take a collective effort for it to be done this well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Giovanna. We're not going to have a public hearing on the special assessment district until 7 p.m. So I did notice there were some residents in the audience. Would it be okay with the board if we move public comments up so residents could have the opportunity who are here that would like to speak?
So move, Peterson.
There's a motion support to move public comments up. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone that would like to make a public comment at this time, you are welcome to do so. Just give your name, or if you're a township resident, and we're welcome public comments at this time. No? Good evening.
I do have a question. This is in regards.
I'm sorry, is your microphone green there? Is the button green?
No, it's,
If you just push that for us, so.
Sure. Okay, I'm Joseph Jackson. I am a township resident, and thank you for allowing me to come up and share. I do have a question. It is in regards to having a parade in the township. And I know that there are probably approval and permits that have to occur. And I just wanted to know, are there any specific permits and regulations or requirements we need to be aware of the proposed parade route or anything like that? Supervisor?
Well, normally at public comments, we just receive them.
Okay.
We don't
Sure.
engage, but I can tell you at this
Okay.
point, the Road Commission, Washtenaw County Road Commission, they authorize like permits in the road right-of-way for a parade or for anything else.
Okay. All right.
Is that helpful?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
And thank you
I
for the
appreciate that.
peacenik and your leadership on that as well. That was a
God
very
bless you.
successful event.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, then we're going to go to consent agenda, which the minutes of the August 20th, 2024 regular meeting and August 28th, 2024 special meeting with corrections that were sent.
So I had a couple others, so can I add them at this time? So I don't see them up here. I think the vote that we took on the pond, I believe trustee Eldridge voted no. And I don't know that that was reflected or if we have to vote that, reflected that way. So I don't know, trustee Eldridge, if, I think that's correct, right? So I don't remember the page. I don't have it up here right now.
Okay, any other correction?
Okay, then the other one, I thought that, I don't know if this is necessarily a correction, I just thought it would be a good idea. The part at the beginning that talked about the auditor coming and doing the presentation, we use like the acronym for like where she works, and I thought we might want to just add the word auditor in front of her name so that people would know that that was our auditor.
Thank you. All right, I also move the consent agenda.
With the correction? Motion Rowe. Support Eldridge. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Attorney's report, Mr. Winters?
Madam Chair, there are a number of items on the agenda tonight that I probably will have comments in regards to those specific agenda items. I will say that as a segue to your board agenda, after listening to the accounting director's report, I think Brian McCleary was here tonight again to seek authorization for property that's being sold pursuant to the township's policies. And I think in one of my letters, I had mentioned that Supervisor Stumbo had recommended that the proceeds from those sales also be directed to the fund that we established when we started selling properties from the Seaver Farm. If you recall, the Aldi funds were deposited into an account, and if the Culver's property goes through that process, those funds will be deposited. These miscellaneous lots that we're selling right now might also be something for the board to consider to have those funds deposited, because again, those funds are going to be used to reinvest into the older neighborhoods, commercial districts that might need continued assistance. And so while Brian continues to work with our office and the title work to sell properties, it might be 8,000 here, 10,000 there. They do add up after a while. And that was just I thought a good suggestion by the supervisor that those funds also be added to that so-called specific fund that was designated to handle, to collect the proceeds from the sale of township property. Just kind of a segue into, an afterthought after listening to Giovanna speak about certain budgets, that maybe that's one that could also be added as we go through studies, infrastructure improvements, lighting, revitalization. So I just thought that might be good for the board to consider at some point in time.
And we actually did create a line item for Ecorse Road first, and it's dedicated funds, but all the proceeds from the sale of the property, are going to be allocated so we can continue to invest and revitalize the area. So thank you, Doug. Under new business, we have the request authorization to enter into negotiations to sell property located at 1609 Outer Lane and 1619 Outer Lane Drive to Joshua and McKinley Angle.
So moved.
Motion Rowe. Support Swanson. And Brian McCleary is here. And with this, we'll come back to the Township Board, and it's all these little small side lots that we've inherited in the past from the county tax foreclosure.
Hello. Okay. Yes, Brian McCleary, Deputy Assessor. Yes, we've had quite a few of them this past summer. There were about 6 of them. And this, Ms. Engel came to my office and requested, they had just purchased a lot on Outer Lane, and they wanted to buy 2 parcels that the township owned that were adjacent. And it's her dream to build 2 houses, one for her sister and one for herself. Their family owns a construction business, and they just finished building for her brother a house in the township, so they all want to have homes and have home ownership. So this would take the property and put it on the assessment roll, and the new owners would maintain it and construct a home, and that would lead to the assessments on there.
Is there a map? There's also a map in there that shows you where they're located, so it's really, Brian, thank you for your leadership on this. I know you and Attorney Winters meet and negotiate, but you've been hitting it out of the ballpark this year and trying to get these into home ownership and off the tax rolls, because we mow. We have to mow a lot of it, and the residents have to notify us because of noxious weeds, and it's kind of embarrassing. But this is a much better use of the land so people can expand their home and build a home.
Right.
Thank you for all you're doing. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2 is the request authorization to sign the letter of support for the Washtenaw County Road Commission regarding the Whitaker Road at March Road Roundabout project.
So moved.
Support Peterson.
Motion Rowe, support Peterson. There will be community engagement on this. There must be a lot of money for roundabouts, I'm thinking. And it does move the traffic pretty well and helps with avoid accidents. So the Road Commission had sent us an email and requested that the township support the funding for this grant, and this is the process to do that. And they'll have public engagement meetings as well, because there's a lot of people that live out there, and they've already done one. They've done 2. Willis Road is open now, too. So there's a lot of traffic that moves through those intersections, and March Road is off-center and hard to navigate, especially at night. It's not, so I do think this would make an improvement, and this allows a bike path relocation as well. Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3 is a request authorization to sign the letter of support for the Washtenaw County Water Resource Commission grant proposal for green stormwater infrastructure.
So moved.
Motion Rowe, support Swanson. So this is to do additional rain gardens, and they're at Rosedale, Stratford, Bear Hills, and allows a wildflower prairie and pathway at Ford Lake Park, and tree plantings along the pathway at Clubview Park as well. Clubview just did the renovations on their pickleball court, and right next to it, John Hines was telling me and showed me a picture, there's there's water. So this will help manage the water in those parks. We have one in Sugarbrook, and you'll see it on the rest of the agenda. And then what we end up doing is adding this to the County Drain Commission, and they have $5,000 per year for maintenance. And it means that it will be maintained and not up to individual property owners or the township to do it. They actually will oversee the installation and the maintenance of it. Questions or comments?
So it's the maintenance part that I'm wondering about. I know that it helps mitigate things and with some of the flooding and climate change and all that, but they're often, it takes a little while for them to get established. And so what happens, like who comes back and makes sure that that gets established that way? Because if it's, just put in there and it can become unsightly and some things can happen, like you've got, it takes a lot of work to get it to its point, like especially prairies and stuff like that. You want the native plantings, but if it's not cared for, it can end up looking poorly, and some residents are not in support of it. It's not just they'd rather see green. There have been instances where these types of things are put in and then they don't end up getting the tender care that they need to get to the place that they are supposed to be to do it. So how do we make sure that happens if we...
In the past, we've had maintenance agreements where the County Drain Commission comes in every year, and I don't know if they pull certain weeds and cut back stuff. I'm not sure how they do it. Harris Road is finally looking. They did it in the ditch line there, and that's finally looking better than what it was. But they maintain it, the actual Drain Commission. They have people that come in and are paid to do it. So that's helpful because it's hard to maintain it.
Right, and I think it's important, but I don't want to get in a position where we do something that sounds good or sounds easy and then it doesn't have the intended consequence, because I think then we end up causing ourselves problems because residents are not going to believe us if we say we're going to put something in. So I just want to caution us that the maintenance, the fact that they're native plants, maybe there's even some education, public education that can be about it, but we don't want to create things that don't look great for what's intended. So I know that there's a lot of complaints about like what it looks like over by the new bypass over, when it has to be done in a way that's not just let it go, because otherwise you're not going to get the native plants, you're going to get other things that take over, and I just don't want us to be in a position.
And that's an example of them not taking, we're not under contract with them, and that was a MDOT project, and you're right, anyways, I agree with you on US 12, and we need to address that. And this is for a grant, it'll come back to the township if it's awarded. Right, it says that there's an estimated match of 30,000. So, and then we do, if in the memo, it was commits to funding the long-term maintenance of the green.
And I think it would be really important that if the grant is received, that there's some really deep conversations about how that's going to happen, so that if we don't receive it, then it's kind of a moot point.
And we don't have to do it, like if people don't, we don't have to do these. I
don't think I'm saying don't, I'm just saying that attention has to be paid to something that people say is going to be a certain way and may not end up being that way.
Yeah. So we have a motion and support. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 is a request to approve the agreement for the establishment of a new branch to a county drain for a rain garden that's already located at 2025 East Clark Road.
So move.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Aldridge. And, did I say that right?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I should have mentioned, I mentioned this to Attorney Winters earlier, but just say contingent upon attorney approval, because we don't have, the agreements that we've seen don't all have the detail that I'm sure Attorney Winters will want, so.
Friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you.
And this, we kind of rehashing it, but there is an already established rain garden by the skate park. So this allows the continued maintenance of that and puts it into the drainage district, as opposed to just standing alone.
I think that one.
I just wanted to clarify, but this one is for the rain garden that's at the community center, not at
I'm
Community Center
sorry.
Park. And then, was there a separate agreement you needed, Clerk Rowe, besides the one that was attached?
I just want to make sure that Doug has a chance to review all of them.
Oh,
before
okay,
we-
sorry, misunderstood.
This is on the golf course, right?
Yes.
My apologies. So it's putting them into the county drainage system for maintenance. Continue. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
My comments would be the same. So I don't have to do it each time, and just understand that I think it's really important that it's more than just handing something over to somebody for maintenance, that it's got to serve a purpose other than just making sure that we're not maintaining it, and we've got to be really clear about that. Otherwise, I'm concerned. So I won't say it each time, but every time I see that on the agenda, that is the concern I have.
And in the memo, it says that the agreement adds the rain gardens located at community center to be a part of a maintenance agreement. That's the purpose of putting it into it. So we, as Ipsy Township, who really I don't think we've ever maintained it. We don't have that knowledge and skills and ability or staff to do it. So it puts it in that district to address exactly what you're talking about. Okay. John?
No, I was going to add, this is similar to the rain garden at the skate park, also at Loon Feather Park, Sugarbrook Park. I know there's quite a few that we've worked with, Harry from the county and Katie to maintain, and especially on the skate park, because I drive by it almost every day. I mean, it's growing in and looking very nice, and with their volunteer force, you know, they do have it looking well, because I know that when rain gardens are not, as you've said many times, it looks very overgrown and unsightly, so.
It takes like four years or 3 to 5 years from the drain commissions here, if we have. Can you turn the mic on and just give your name?
You just push the button until it turns green.
Oh, fancy. Harry Sheehan, Washington County Deputy Water Resources Commissioner. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been doing these long enough where we've been engaged in the design, so that the maintenance is easier because the design works, and we've been talking with, you know, the communities of interest in a garden around Loon Feather or the community center about, like, you know, how much of a prairie versus how much of a flower garden should this look like, how tight, how formal it should be. So in the community center garden, that's kind of a nurtured, formal-looking garden. So if there is a garden that hasn't been performing well, we'd like to know about it.
Right.
I think, you know, the fact that they take a while, they just take a while to establish because we plant them in the fall and they kind of sit dormant, but we don't have to water them. So it's 3 years: sleep, creep, and leap, and then they start to take off.
Sleep, creep, and leap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, this is, so we talked about the grant. The grant is just a commitment to, hey, if we get this grant, we can build some more. And I would say with the grant that the funder was interested the first time for the skate park and the second time for Sugarbrook and Community Center to fund green infrastructure in places where people were. They've added benches and trails to this next one, so it's not just about the gardens. So it's kind of a nice way to get people into these places where there's green infrastructure. So there's a little bit more of that component. But if we get that grant, based on this match commitment, we'll find out in the winter, and we can start looking at building those. Then we'll come back to you with these resolutions we're talking about for maintenance.
So the only thing I'd want to add is that as we're planning to be thoughtful about, we do have a vermin problem. And so in some of the neighborhoods that we're placing this, at least an awareness of that's part of the problem. Like, we don't want to create a space that encourages vermin because we already know we're dealing with it, which your department knows we're dealing with it, and they've been helping us address it. But we don't want to we don't want to create anything that's going to aggravate that. And so even when it's planning, I mean, be thinking about, are there plants that could be planted that might decrease that so that we can cover a lot of territory with the issues that we have to, whether it's water, whether it's vermin, whatever. If there's a way to put those things or connect those things together, it's helpful, because we don't want one thing to cause an unintended consequence or something else. So I know that where some of the prairies are being developed by the schools, that's some of the concern. Not that people aren't interested in it or they don't see it as a learning environment, but you can imagine if you're a neighborhood that's already having issues with something, you don't want to create something that's going to be attractive for something. They say it's not going to. But then trust is always a factor when people are going into other people's neighborhoods and making decisions about that. And there probably are a lot of people who appreciate it. There may be many people who would rather have a green manicured space. So I am not anti-rain garden or prairies. I'm just want to be really intentional about what we do so there's no unintended consequences for the residents that live in close proximity to it.
And if I could say, I appreciate that. And the update that Evan put out today specifically about the rats, Loon Feather Park, Sugarbrook, those are not the hot spots. The rats don't like to not see, so they don't love these areas. What they love is storm sewers. So you will see a lot of the baiting in a lot of the hot spots going along storm sewers. Rain gardens and green infrastructure is a way to treat stormwater outside of the storm sewers system. So if we can dry up some of the storm sewers and get the water into the ground, plus have plants that are kind of got some vertical structure. The vermin don't like that, including geese.
I think they like prairies.
I didn't mean to diss Canada geese, but calling them vermin, but they can be a problem.
We got it, yeah. And we're so thankful to the Drain Commission for helping us with a lot of the issues and managing the rain garden for us,
And we thank you for the partnership.
So we have a motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to do number at this time? Yeah. Number 5 is request to approve the agreement for the establishment of a new branch to a county drain for rain garden at 1301 South Harris, contingent upon attorney review, and it's existing.
So move, Peterson.
Motion Peterson,
Support.
support Rowe. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6 is request to approve the agreement for the establishment of a new branch to a county drain for a rain garden located at 1511 Andrea, which is existing, contingent upon attorney approval.
So move, Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Rowe. There are questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to go back to the public hearing. I'd like to call the public hearing to order for the Special Assessment District, which is Resolution 2024-13 for special assessment levies. I declare the public hearing open at 7 o'clock p.m.
I have resolution number,
Are there any public comments? Does anyone want to speak about the special assessment levy? We do this every year. It's for Washog. It's for special assessment for drains and, no, drains aren't on it.
no drains.
It is done, yeah. It's for the street lighting and cameras. That's what this special assessment district for. And every year, we're required to have a public hearing. Are there any public comments? And normally, residents don't come to this annually. So hearing no public comments, I'll close the public hearing. Clerk Rowe?
I have resolution number 2024-13, whereas the Charter Township of Ypsilanti Board of Trustees on September 17th, 2024 held a public hearing on the proposed special assessment roll prepared by the deputy assessor, a copy of which is on file in the clerk's office, after advertising the same in the newspaper of record in the township. And whereas on September 17th, 2024, the Ypsilanti Township Board heard comments on said proposed special assessment roll prepared by the deputy assessor. Now therefore it be resolved that the proposed special assessment roll prepared by the deputy assessor for the Charter Township of Ypsilanti be adopted, and the amount set forth on the special assessment rolls be levied on the 2024 winter tax bill. I so move the resolution.
Motion Rowe?
Support.
Support Eldridge. Questions or comments? This levy is put on the summer tax roll? Is it winter or summer?
Winner.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to go back to number 7 on the agenda, which is a request to approve a 5-year agreement with Detection Systems and Engineering, which is DSE, to be the primary camera operations vendor with Ypsilanti Township.
So move.
Motion Rowe?
Support Peterson.
Support Peterson. Where's Mr. Hines?
Madam Chair. Just while we're waiting for John to come back, I'll just share a few comments that I had asked of John. First, I'm really glad to see this change. The other company that we had been using for the past several years is just a little difficult to work with. And I know that Robin Kesselheim, the community events manager, and I have shared some of the similar interactions, as well as Deputy Supervisor Elizabeth Cooler. And so I'm excited to see this change. I did want to clarify with John that there will be no interruption of the camera services during the time of change, just because we're underway of an election and there's laws requiring us to have security cameras on all of our drop boxes. And I've been assured that there will be no break in any of that services, so our election drop boxes will remain secure. And that is, of course, always a top priority here. So I want to thank John for being able to answer that question, and as well as everyone who helped participate in getting a bid out for new camera services.
Good evening. I apologize. I missed the beginning of the board agenda item. But I guess to follow up on what Heather said, we are requesting to approve a 5-year agreement pending attorney review with DSE, Detection Systems Engineering Company, to be the primary camera operation vendor with Ypsilanti Township. They would work with us to oversee the police cameras as well as our internal cameras. We currently work with Conti, and due to, I'd say, just timelines on getting services is kind of the biggest reason why we've went forward with the RFQ and talked to other Vigilon partners, and why we've recommended a change. It has come down to security issue, which I think is what Clerk Rowe was saying. We've had a few cameras, for example, just on some neighborhoods that we've just had to go through the process, and it's taken over 6 months to get done. It's still not done, and it just is to the point where we try to set up a meeting and the meetings do not happen, and there's just a lot of issues that we've kind of gone through with our current vendor. And when we met with DSE, we went out to bid and we received 5 responses. We interviewed 3 of them. One was our existing vendor, one was one that did not seem applicable with our system per our IS manager, Travis McDougall, and then we interviewed with the other 3. We met with DSE on a number of occasions, and the comfortability of our interaction with them, their ability to do the job, and actually their integration potentially in the future with some of our other security services made them the ideal fit. You know, we've already had preliminary discussions on what their door access reader systems look like. They also do security cameras. Again, these are, they also do alarm systems. So a lot of this other things are kind of down the road kind of discussions or ideas. But for the immediate, we want to get DSC on board, get this agreement to Doug to review, and get them going kind of as soon as possible. Because we still need cameras to be serviced that are not being serviced.
Just for clarity, the cameras are already owned by the township. It's, and Comcast or Xfinity is who we pay the bill to for the operations of it.
That's correct. And I was talking with Travis earlier. He cannot be here tonight, unfortunately, but he is bringing the Comcast agreement to the next meeting as well. So Comcast has been in the loop with kind of our camera, what's going on with the cameras right now, so they're well aware, and, they'll be brought to the next meeting. We also work with DT for the power part of things, and I was speaking with Attorney Winters earlier, and I know we have a long agreement with DTE that's very detailed, so I'm not sure exactly how it would work, but I do have a plan, as we've talked as a group with DSE, that to have them more integrated in the process to work with DTE and with Comcast, so it's not such a 6-step operation. Because right now, if we're to get a camera out on a pole, it is contact Conti, agree on purchasing the camera, then do a permit to DTE, then DTE approves, puts power on it, then back to Conti to put the camera up, then back to Comcast to attach the service, and then for Conti to turn it on. So it's a 6-step operation that just over time, due to staffing, due to a bucket truck being down, which we're currently going through, we just all of a sudden put a request in again in March, and we're here September 17th with no power to those cameras.
And the video is only requested by the sheriff's department for crimes after they occur in order to solve a crime. And maintaining them with Conti, has been an issue over time because we always have to have them up and running in order for them to utilize it. It's only in the road right away, but a lot of neighbors and neighborhoods have these cameras for the purpose to help solve crimes.
Yes.
So it's very important that they're operational.
And a big conversational point with DSE came with the able to monitor our cameras with us, because I think currently, Robin Castle-Hine oversees kind of checking them on a daily basis for the police services cameras. So she has to notice them and then put the report out to them, where they have a system that can actually alert when a camera is down and we can get it up and running. We don't have instances where we go back to look for something and unfortunately the camera's been down because nobody looked in 2 days. Just again, with our conversations, they really made it clear that they're going to be more of a partner that I think will help keep things moving consistently.
And John, you didn't have how many people, you didn't have that, the bid sheet in the packet? So I'm not sure who bid and how they bid and.
Correct. I know I mentioned who bid and who we interviewed, but we did not include the bid tab. I do apologize for that.
Six bidders, is that right?
5 bidders.
5 bidders, and you interviewed 3.
Yes, because one was our existing vendor, and
Right.
they did not submit an RFP response that was considerable. Yeah, not complete is a good way to say it as well. And then the other company that we did not interview, which was Security 101, our IS manager was not comfortable with what their answers were in his pre-meeting questionnaire on how their system would align with our current system. So we interviewed.
I don't see the agreement either, am I not reading it correctly? I don't see an agreement.
We don't have the agreement with the packet right now because we're trying to, we need to find out the answer on how we are able to actually integrate DTE and Comcast, and we didn't want to bring something that was incomplete. But we wanted to bring forward the approval to move forward with them. So maybe I misspoke on the agenda item itself, because I'm more so requesting authorization to approve them as our primary vendor to work with them. Because our current vendor obviously has access to all of our cameras right now, And we want to make sure when we get a new company on board that we're able to move forward and make that transition very quickly, so we don't lose access to our service.
We're not going to lose access because we have an agreement with Conti, right?
I don't have a copy of that agreement.
Madam Chair. So, John, I think the way that you explained it to me is that you're hoping to say that, you know, like this is the company that you'd like to move forward with, and then with the help of Attorney Winters, making sure that we understand that DTE agreement for the pole usage, and to like join them together so there's no conflict between working together with DTE and this new company.
Right, we don't want to have an agreement and then add on all these things after. We want to have it complete. But I felt that we're not able to actually have those conversations with two partners that work with our current partner before getting approval from the board.
Madam Chair.
Treasurer Eldridge asked first.
Oh, sorry.
To me, I'm sorry.
fine.
John, I just have a question. The supervisor mentioned the bid sheet, and I had asked for that just a little bit ago. Under DSC, under notes for that company, it says does not meet requirements. I'm just wondering what that means.
Yes, so how he put that in there is the type of camera that DSC submitted was not compatible with our system, and Travis did reach out and get a response from DSC. And I'm going to be honest, there's going to be some technical things in here that I don't quite, does not make sense fully to me, but basically, thank you for catching my mistake on the camera. I must have saw H6SL and then typed 6MP as well. The camera quoted was a 5MP with accurate pricing. The SL models do not have 6MP option. And then there's 3 other bullet points he added with that. So he did make clarification that he misread what Travis had put in there and did correct that error. And what they provide does adequately meet our needs and IT standards.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm supportive of changing, but until we get some answers clarified, I would be comfortable just tabling this to the next meeting.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes, sir. Support.
Motion, Eldridge. Support Hunter. And in 2 weeks, we'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8 is request to join litigation to oppose a nuclear waste coming to waste disposal and share legal costs with Canton Township, Van Buren Township, Sumter Township, Belleville, and Romulus in an amount not to exceed $5,000 from account 101-729-801-023, contingent upon attorney review.
So move.
Motion Rowe.
Support.
Support Eldridge. Mr. Winters, did you want to give a brief overview?
Madam Chairperson, as the board is aware from the last board meeting, all of us are now aware of the plans for the transportation of radioactive waste from the state of New York to the Wayne Disposal landfill. That permit has been issued apparently by Eagle, and it's underway. There was a public hearing, I believe, that was attended by our fire chief and Supervisor Stumbo and Community Resource Coordinator Lori Lutomiski. And from my understanding, there was quite a outpouring of indignation, outrage, disappointment as to how, once again, these things occur without any type of notice, public input, concerns over transportation safety, fire safety, health-related issues. And so I think Supervisor Stumbo has been in contact with the supervisors from Canton Township and Van Buren Township, where the landfill is located. I did receive an email today from the lead attorney in regards to the filing yesterday of a public nuisance lawsuit in the Wayne County Circuit Court. The plaintiffs are Belleville, Canton, Romulus, Van Buren Township, and the Van Buren Fire Chief. and they are scheduled to have those pleadings delivered today to the defendants, and they're waiting for a certain hearing date to see if they can obtain an injunction. The request from the Township Board is to make a contribution of $5,000 towards their legal cost, and that's what's before you this evening. And obviously, I know there's pending legislation that I think has been introduced in Lansing to try and make Michigan one of those states that does not allow the landfills to accept this type of radioactive waste. Apparently, New York has already banned that. That's why they're coming all the way from Niagara Falls to Michigan. Obviously, the township is concerned about the potential for any type of accident that occurs going through the township, I-94, the Rossonville Road accident, which leads directly to the front gates of Wayne Disposal. So I think in support of the neighboring communities, also recognizing the proximity of the Yucca water plant to the regional, that serves a number of communities throughout the region, that the township has every right to also be concerned about the impact this could have upon our township. And so that is the ask of the attorneys representing Canton Township, Van Buren, Romulus, to contribute these funds, and it's in proper form for the board's consideration in terms of moving forward. And I'll let Supervisor Stumbo add anything else that she may have in regards to her conversations with the supervisors of Canton and Van Buren.
And I do want to say give thanks to Congresswoman Dingell, because had she not had this public hearing, no one would have known. And she allowed, and she found out through the newspaper, which is how Van Buren found out. And this just seems an odd way of doing business, with talk about violation of trust. There was it had to be 200-300 people there. It was jam-packed, and they had a lot of questions and concerns, and they had a whole panel up there that was attempting to answer them. But the reality is it was allowed, and this comes on the heels of the Ohio spill that occurred in Palestinian Ohio 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years or last year. 2 years? Yeah, 2 years ago. And again, Ohio didn't accept that toxic chemical and waste, so they were trucking it to Wayne Disposal, same location, and somehow they were able to reverse that decision, and I don't know how, and it must have been on a technicality, and I think, but this time, they should have adopted in legislation 2 years ago, once they had the first issue, and they're also proposing to increase the cost of disposal in the state of Michigan. I guess the state of Michigan sets the rates for the disposal of this toxic waste industry. And they said twofold: first and foremost, eliminate the things you don't want coming here from other states. And secondly, increase the tipping fees cost. And they won't drive 9 hours and 26 miles in order to get to Michigan to actually dispose of the waste, because it's more cost effective to come to the Great Lakes state of Michigan than it is to stay where they're at, and their state doesn't accept it. So hopefully they pass it and everything gets forwarded in the state of Michigan. She did introduce it. I'm not sure of the status of it yet. I haven't read an alert on it, but that's where we're at. And the supervisors from the communities were all there, and we were there because we are the border, and it's close. It's literally on the line, and therefore we kind of had a standing to speak. We weren't so far away, or we weren't. And Washtenaw County could also hopefully make a statement and support not allowing this adjacent to our environmental justice areas. And I don't think there's anything good that come out of it. I know it's been in operations for a long time, but I think we could have done some preventative measures to help with this in the first place, because the cleanup has been, and I think they had like 50 meetings on the cleanup and no meetings on the disposal. So where it's coming from, New York, they actually had all these meetings, but they didn't have any on where the toxic waste is going. And they said they were going to try to address that issue as well. So at least we can be informed, you know. Anyways, that's where we're at, and the request is, like Mr. Winters stated, is to get $5,000 towards the legal fight. We don't in this, and stand with our friends and fight against this coming to our community because of the harm and the danger in traveling down the road. I mean, a train derailed, and look how much. Imagine, and it's going to be months of semi-trucks or truckloads just going down the road. So the probability, it may be a higher percentage of an accident than it actually was. They did also state that it wasn't like a high hazard. Well, nuclear waste sounds terrible. And if it's not, then why didn't the state of New York keep it? So there's a little more to that story. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I too was at that meeting, and it was.
I forgot, John, you were.
Yeah, it was very contentious. It reminded me of, people, nobody wanted it. And I understand that what Congressman Dingell was mentioning to get that legislation. Is there a timeline on that? Because they're going to begin in January, from my understanding, and it'll be just week after week after week.
September is what they said at the meeting, is when they were going. That's why they're trying to do Yes. And I will send an email to our state senators and representative to ask them for the status on that. Yeah.
Because that was, 25 trucks a week? Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that.
For months, like you said, for months.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And I apologize, Jen, for...
Oh, no, that's okay. But, it was just one of those things that, and they tried to minimize the impact of the hazardous waste. But why would you come 900 miles to, if it's not that bad?
Right.
I mean,
just keep it.
Yeah. And there are only like 4 or 5 other places in the country, and they decided to bring it here. And that's what I couldn't really understand. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your work on this.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments?
Well, I feel like this is just, saying, like a helpful, just support versus the bigger problem is who's representing us in these other places that are allowing this to happen to us. I don't understand, why the legislation, that's who we need to be working with. I mean, this is helpful, and it stands with other people who are in a rough spot. But if our, if the people who are elected to serve and take care of us think this is an okay thing to happen, then we need different people taking care of us in Lansing and at the federal level, because Eagle has not been kind to us recently. They have not been helpful. They didn't think the coal pile that was dumped from some other place mattered. And so now, they don't have a problem with radioactive material being stored within close proximity to the water source for lots of communities. It's not just our community, it's the city and everybody else that, Yucca serves. So I guess this is fine, but I think our work's not done just with saying we support this. I said, we really have to tell people this is unacceptable, who are responsible for taking care of us, because we don't get a say in this. And Eagle has not, there may be things that Eagle has done that have been helpful to us. Recently, when it comes to material that is not safe, they have not been helpful. There hasn't been any amount of strength that they've come in and said to anybody, this is not okay. So why wouldn't somebody bring it here if the agencies that are supposed to protect us aren't protecting us? That's the bigger problem I think we have here. So however we reach out to them, it's not like an FYI. The people who are representing us should have been, they should have known. And they should have been the ones that were like ahead of this curve so that it wasn't even getting here. Whatever's got to be passed to make sure this happens. I mean, at some point, if we're going to produce stuff, we have to have a way of taking care of it. I mean, that stands to reason. You can't just keep doing things in the environment and not having a plan for it. But it can't be that the plan is to just dump it over here. And again, I'll go back to the coal pile. They did nothing to help us with that coal ash. That did not come from Michigan. We don't know where it came from. We don't know where it was. And I guess after it's removed, everybody's okay with the fact that it just sat there for months with it running off and ending up in the sewers and blowing wherever. It's just very disappointing that we're supposed to be cared for, and we're not being cared for people. So it is appalling that this has happened, and I support the idea that we get behind it, but I don't think it's going to be enough because it's happened too frequently in our community or in close proximity to our community recently. So Attorney Winters, who are the defendants that this lawsuit is going to?
I haven't seen the pleadings. I believe it's going to be Wayne Disposal. I'm not sure it's going to also include Eagle and the authority in New York, but I think their goal is to stop them from accepting the waste from coming into Wayne Disposal. And just to highlight what you just said, at the last meeting in August, I brought up what I thought was a pattern of ongoing disparate treatment in eastern Washtenaw County, especially the township, with the way that the county handled the flooding that occurred in Sugarbrook and West Willow, and their failure for the county administrator to declare a public emergency because, according to those texts or emails, it only affected about 1% of the county. In other words, that 1% of the county, it was in Ypsilanti Township, really did not matter to the people that could have declared a disaster event for the flooding that occurred. Then you throw into the coal pile, and you throw into these other issues that go on in eastern Washtenaw County. You get a feeling somehow, again, as Brendan indicated, the environmental injustice seems to happen over here. And after a while, it's not just a coincidence. I think it's done with some degree of conscious decision making. And so I agree the $5,000 is going to be a good commitment that the township wants to stand with their neighbors, but it goes much deeper than that, both at the county level and the state level. And the response that we got from Eagle in dealing with the coal ash was extremely disappointing. I mean, it was like basically it doesn't matter. And to this day, we still don't know exactly the impact that may have. So I think that we continue to try and fight the good fight, but sometimes you kind of feel like nobody else is watching or acting after it dies down. And then, like Brenda said, it was over 2 years ago, and the momentum should have taken off after that train derailment in Palestine, Ohio, but it didn't. So it just it results in more questions being asked than answers that are available right now as to why not. And Eagle, you sometimes wonder who they're really working for, given what we've seen here of late. So once the lawsuit, I'm sure that I'll get a copy tomorrow, so I'll forward that on to the board.
Just one more statement. The thing that struck me while they were explaining the minimization of the hazardous waste is that by the time something does occur, it'll be like 10 years later when people find it, when people are getting sick, and they'll be gone somewhere onto something else. And that's what struck me, because the stuff is a slow burn. It doesn't come immediately. It comes over time. But when it does come, it's, it's really bad.
Okay, we have a motion in support. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Peterson? Can you turn on the, there we go.
Sorry. No, it's not audience participation, but a lady has her hand up.
You can go to the microphone and speak on the issue, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Is there a green light on?
Okay, I would just, I live in West Willow, and I like to say that if we don't, as a community, our state representative, you on the board, the supervisor, you can't sit back and say why somebody didn't do nothing or why they're not, yeah, it's on their desk, but if you're not pushing them to act on certain things, they're only gonna service people who push them to do certain things. So my suggestion is for everybody, maybe you can get information out in flyers or something, and we talk to our state representatives. One of my representatives, like Jimmy Wilson, you got Debbie Dingle, you have to push people to the things that you want done for your community and your area. You have to push them. You have to make them do something. And so we can't sit and say, yeah, this happened 2 years ago. Why ain't nobody doing anything? We got to say, I contacted this person 100 times. You call, send emails, letters, they start listening. It sounds minute, but it's the truth. They're going to respond to a letter, an email, because they have to record all this. They have to record when you call. And then that lights a fire to them. Our county commissioners, not just in our area, because you're right, this is the lower end of Washtenaw County. They'll dump, pump, whatever they want over here with no regards. But we have county commissioners in our Washtenaw County, over in Saline, and all those other areas. They need to be on board with over here. So we have to make people, hold them accountable for what we want done. And that's everybody. You, me, our representatives, our senators, our state senators, our governor. Why are you letting us come in here? I don't care if it's on the east side of Detroit, West Willow, or over there in Rochester, Milan, all those there, all that, Dexter. It's not going over there. It's coming over here. So yeah, we should support them, but we got to have a better communication and push people to do what they're supposed to do. Okay. That's everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is request authorization for circuit court litigation to abate public nuisance at property identified as 1979 Tyler Road, which is budgeted.
So moved.
Motion Rowe.
Support.
Support Eldridge.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I'm here to request approval to authorize our attorneys to engage in litigation to resolve a public nuisance that's located at 1979 Tyler. And this is a rental property. The property owner, Nabila Gall, lives in Indiana. And she purchased the property in 2019, and since she purchased it, we've had 19 enforcement actions that we've opened. Initially, the enforcement actions were more simple things like grass and bulk trash, which is usually things left out by the curb that they didn't do a bulk pickup for. So those are easily resolved, but in the within the last 2 years, she's brought in different tenants that have caused an increase in the frequency of complaints, an increase in the severity of the complaints, and the property has just become dilapidated, due to these, mostly due to the tenants that are there, but also because the landlord is not in the area and not monitoring the property. We have mowed the property several times in last year, and then I've itemized a list of the other kinds of enforcement actions that we've had with trash and parking in the grass, animal waste, furniture. They did have a mattress at the curb that they burned in the backyard along with some other furniture. And just trash and blight that's stored outside. So each time that these violations happen, we give a notice to the property owner, and we also and to the tenant, we also give them a printout showing them how to handle their bulk trash pickup, what they need to do step by step to try to get them to take this action on their own. We've had multiple phone conversations with the property owner, also with the tenants, and really just have not gotten anywhere with either one. This year, on August 6th, we had initial rental inspection, and the conditions inside the house had deteriorated so much that since the previous inspection in '22, that that's why we headed towards the litigation. I have a list of the items some of them that came up during the rental inspection. Some of the more dangerous ones where there's a bedroom set up in the garage, and that's what one of the pictures are. You can see plastic bisqueen set up, so it's just a regular garage that hasn't been approved for anybody to live in. There's a severe infestation of cockroaches, other insects, mice, and rats. Smoke detectors were removed or disabled. They were permanently using extension cords to power appliances. No working stove. Holes and rotting wood in the house, which is usually a water issue. A lot of blight outside, old tires, that type of thing. And also, just to note, the property owner did not attend that inspection or the re-inspection that was performed on September 6th. And at the re-inspection, some of the violations were resolved, but quite a few still have not been resolved that were considered the major type of infractions. The property owner's been having it treated first with Terminex, and she did send me receipts showing Terminex identified there was a problem and they were treating it, but now they've switched to Orkin at our request, but it's not going to get resolved because of the conditions, the unsanitary conditions in the house. And I've talked to the property owner about that. Unless she's going to hire some type of a cleaning service to come in weekly to clean up after her tenants, it's not going to get resolved, and they can keep treating for the infestations as long as they want, but it's not going to go away. On this most recent inspection, Bob Kelch, the ordinance administrator, and I both attended that inspection and talked to the tenants, and then I talked to the property owner again afterwards and told her we were heading in this direction with litigation due to the conditions of the house. At this time, it's severely blighted inside and out, and it's just having a negative impact on the quality of life for the residents that live nearby. So we're requesting authorization to initiate legal action.
Questions or comment? The only thing I'd like to say is that we need to do it sooner than in the future, now that we're at full staff for ordinance and rental and property inspections. And I know COVID did a lot, but
we weren't aware.
We just only do, if there's 2 or 3 complaints, that's usually a red flag if they're consistent.
Right.
Yeah. That's my only request. Other questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Belinda. Number 10 is request authorization to retain Infrastructure Engineering of Michigan for engineering services in the amount of $145,000 to update the 2000 master plan thoroughfare study south of I-94 and a new traffic feasibility study for the E-Course Road Business District.
Move Peterson.
Support.
Motion Peterson, support Rowe. And in the memo, in the packet, it talks about the Infrastructure Engineering of Michigan is an engineering company that includes Paul Ajabaugh, who is the former director of MDOT, and he is retired now, and is working in conjunction with Senkar Consulting Company, which includes Brad Strader and Barb Aarons, and Barb is with us this evening. And these two individuals performed our last traffic impact study of I-94 South in the year 2000 and are very familiar, and it will be updating that study. It also says that there have been many developments, as we know, since the last traffic impact study that designated the level of service, the road and intersection improvements needed, and recommended the reduction in density at that time in order to accommodate the future growth of the roads. So the roads and non-motorized path improvements in the 2000 and forward was actually paid for by the developers, and it was because of that traffic impact study. The study needs to be updated, and we anticipate continued growth in our township and neighboring communities that use our roadway to get to 94 and 23. And it will also assist with applying for grants. So by doing these studies helps with that. The second impact study area is E-Course Road Corridor that includes a non-motorized path and lighting. An E-Course Road plan was created that included the road diet in 2018, but it did not have a transportation study analysis with that. The residents and business owners along the corridor are requesting that we move forward with improvements to revitalize the area and make it safer with the lighting and non-motorized path and future diet, if that is what MDOT so chooses or wants to have done. There is $95,000 that is budgeted for a transportation study, and the project total is $145,500. The remaining $50,500 will come from the E-Course Corridor revitalization line item that was newly created with the funding allocation from the sale of all township land, and created a new line item for that as well. So that is my introduction, and Paul and Barbara are here this evening. Do you have anything to add, Mr.?
Good evening, Board. As Ms. Stumble said, my name is Paul Ajaba. I've lived in the community.
I can't hear you back there, I'm sorry. Is the light on?
Is it green?
Yeah, the light is on.
It's voice activated, so you got to get kind of close.
I've lived in the community for over 38 years, so I'm very familiar with the area, E-Course Road especially. Bob's team did the last study in 2000. I don't know if you want to say a few words either.
Just that a lot of the community has grown, and so these studies do need to be updated. And I understand from Supervisor Stumbo that you've actually used it, so that's been very effective to have these kind of studies done and updated to reflect current conditions in the future 20 years.
And another, we met with Paul when he retired, and he, I've known him for years, and I called him and asked him about the pedestrian that was killed on the e-bike, well, they were on an e-bike, in West Willow. And so we contacted MDOT and said, can we put some flashing lights, which we had asked to slow the traffic down, to put more stuff up at that time. And now there's a fatality, and Paul actually was able to reach out to MDOT. And they were waiting on the report from the Sheriff's Department. Our sheriff is asking for more improvements there to slow that traffic down. And then there was another fatality last week. Well, there was two people in Ypsi Township, further down towards E-Course Road before Canton, or Van Buren Township. And another MDOT project that eliminated a barrier between the two eastbound and westbound traffic, and when they reconfigured it, and at that time, the township board, and we requested that you please put up something, guide wires going down it, some sort of barrier, and MDOT said no, it didn't meet engineer standings at that time. So I asked Paul today when I was talking to him, could we reach out? And we will retain you for Ypsi Township to help us with the MDOT. And like our resident said before, and just start asking, creating, and advocating, I was going to say aggravating, but advocating on behalf of, everyone knows they need to be changed, right? But MDOT is a really large dinosaur to move, and when they get the engineering standards, it's hard to get them to change that. But I don't know how many accidents or how many deaths it's going to take to get them to do it. So with authorization of this contract and adding their firm to the professional services, we can actually utilize the firm to help us out on issues, especially as it pertains to MDOT roads and traffic study. So anyways, I just wanted to say that because it's frustrating, but we appreciate the opportunity with your history and knowledge to help make our roads safer and plan for the future. Myers bought 50 acres on Huron Street. They will not tell us, and they do not have to tell us what else they plan on doing. So that's a concern of the residents and people who travel here. So this kind of impact study would assist with updating that and getting the level of services. And then E-Course Road is just going to be a huge improvement and blessing for everyone. And Michigan Avenue is another one. And there's a Washtenaw, reimagined Washtenaw in progress, but that's taken a decade about. But E-Course Road can move, and that's exciting to actually see movement on that. So, any other questions or comments from Paul and Barb? And this is contingent upon attorney approval as well? Mr. Winters?
Yes, just for the board's background information, it's hard to believe it's been 24 years or maybe longer when we first did that traffic impact study. That was at a time when we were having residential development almost occur on a monthly basis. We had all the major home builders, Pulte being one, that were buying up properties on the south side. And while the road commission would go on a project-by-project basis for a traffic impact study, nobody was actually doing what we thought was needed, a more holistic approach as to what does it look like, more on a regional level here. And so when that study came out, I think Barb was with Parsons Rinkerhoff at the time, and Brad Strader was also the township planner. We got to see into the future as to what the level of services were then, which then led the township to actually declare a building moratorium because the density was just going to was overwhelming the actual road network. And we actually reduced the density, I think, on 2 separate occasions on the south side, and that was the main reason why the road commission was able to work with the township, and we negotiated the road improvement agreements with all the developers that at that time they saw too that it was in their best interest to improve the roadway network so people could actually go to point A to point B safely. And again, we wanted to do a more of a larger view as to what was the future of the township, and we were kind of not surprised, but somewhat taken aback, though, as to the level of service in all the major intersections. There wasn't one that was operating probably above a level of D service, a level of service D. I know that's your vocabulary that you use in the industry, but we learned an awful lot during that process. And right now, even today, I know that we've been at development team meetings where Brenda, Heather, and Stan and myself will keep on requesting the road commission to do a more holistic look at traffic, and they just won't do it. They just say right now we'll just do it based upon the project in front of us, and we know that as Brenda said, Myers did not buy 50 acres of property to grow soybeans or corn. They're going to develop this, and so we need to be ready for a plan so that when they bring in their traffic consultants and their traffic impact studies, we have someone looking out for the township's long-term interest, because we know development is going to continue to occur. And that's not a bad thing, as long as it's done in a way that's not going to result in just gridlock and unsafe measures that we've seen in other parts of the state, even in Washtenaw County. So I think it's probably one that's been talked about for a long time by the board officials and long overdue. And again, I can't believe it's been 25 years that we did the first one, the last one. But I'm looking forward to making sure that we have this study done so that when development comes knocking on the door, and they will, that we actually have a document that we can point to with a large degree of confidence that this is what is going to have to be done in order for you to succeed here and come to the township, because we know it's happening very fast.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome. Number 11 in the last agenda item is budget amendment number 11.
I have motion to amend the 2024 budget. I would move to increase the general fund budget by $50,500 to $27,093,668 and approve the line item changes as outlined. I would move to increase the recreation fund budget by $5,355 to $932,250 and approve the line item changes as outlined. I move to increase the hydro station fund budget by $5,469 to $1,190,280 and approve the line item changes as outlined. I would so move the budget amendment.
Motion Rowe. Support Eldridge. Is there questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business? There is not any other business. We did public comments, but if people would like to make another public comment, they're welcome to. Are there any board member updates? Yeah.
Just one for the board and in the audience. Just an update very quickly on the feasibility study. There was some delays in getting information for the company from different entities. They've now got that under control, and we're still awaiting for them to put a final draft together. Just to speak about the feasibility, depending on how that report comes back, then the board would then make a decision on the next steps moving forward, which would include, if they move in that direction, some community engagement. So right now, we're still waiting on the draft, and there's really nothing to report.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Eldridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 7:54. Thank you, everyone.